Close your eyes and imagine this. A soldier stands at the edge of an empty village, his hand trembling as he holds a letter he will never send home. Around him, the silence is so thick it crushes the air from his lungs. No birds sing, no dogs bark. The cooking fires are cold. Ahead lies a road that promises victory, but behind every tree, behind every shadow, death is watching. He does not know it yet, but he is already dead. He and 30,000 others, marching confidently into a valley that will become their grave. This is not a story about weapons or walls or superior numbers. This is a story about how silence became a weapon, how empty villages became traps, how a nation outnumbered 5-1 made an empire bleed without ever meeting them in open battle. This is the story of Qi Lang, where the jungle swallowed an army whole and spat out nothing but ghosts. The men who died here believed they were invincible. They believed their emperor's power would shield them. They believed the Vietnamese would scatter like frightened children. They were wrong. And if we forget them, if we let this story fade into the mist of history, we dishonor not just their sacrifice, but the truth that sometimes the greatest victories are won not by the sword, but by the mind. So stay with me, because what happened in those mountains in 1427 will make you question everything you thought you knew about war. The year is 1427. For more than a decade, the people of northern Vietnam have been fighting a war they were never supposed to win. The Ming dynasty of China, one of the most powerful empires on earth, occupied their land, imposed their rules, demanded tribute, and crushed any whisper of resistance with overwhelming force. But the Vietnamese did not stop resisting. They could not, because some things are worth more than survival. Some things are worth dying for, and freedom is one of them. At the heart of this resistance is a man named Lu Loi. He is not a king. He is not born into nobility. He is a landowner, a farmer who watched his people suffer under foreign boots and decided that enough was enough. For 10 years, he has led a rebellion that moves like water, appearing where the enemy is weak, vanishing before they can strike back, living in the mountains and jungles, surviving on rice and determination. His soldiers are not professional warriors. They are farmers and blacksmiths and fishermen who have learned to fight because they have no choice. And somehow, impossibly, they have survived. They have even begun to win. But now, the Ming Emperor has had enough. He is sending 2 massive armies to crush the rebellion once and for all. From the north, through the mountain passes of Guangxi, comes General Liu Sheng with over 100,000 soldiers. From the west, through the rugged terrain of Yunnan, comes General Mu Sheng with tens of thousands more. These are not raw recruits. These are battle-hardened veterans, professional soldiers who have fought across China and beyond. They carry superior weapons, sophisticated siege equipment, and the absolute confidence of men who have never known defeat. Their mission is simple: relieve the besieged Ming fortress at Shenyang, destroy Lu Loi's forces, restore imperial control, make an example of anyone who dares to resist. To anyone watching from the outside, the outcome seems inevitable. The Vietnamese are outnumbered at least 5-1. They have no fortified cities to retreat to, no allied kingdoms to call for help, no advanced weapons to level the playing field. They have only the mountains, the jungle, and their refusal to surrender. And somehow, that will be enough. Because Lu Loi and his commanders have a plan so audacious, so counterintuitive, so brilliantly insane that it just might work. They are going to let the enemy come. They are going to open the door and invite 100,000 soldiers to march deep into Vietnamese territory without firing a single shot. They are going to make the Ming army feel safe, confident, unstoppable. And then, when the moment is right, they are going to close the trap and annihilate them. This strategy has a name: the empty fort plan. It is a tactic borrowed from ancient Chinese military philosophy, a psychological trap that plays on the arrogance and assumptions of a superior force. The idea is simple but requires nerves of steel. You abandon your defenses. You leave your cities empty. You create the illusion of weakness, of panic, of collapse. And you wait for the enemy to walk into the killing ground you have prepared for them. But executing this plan requires more than courage. It requires perfect coordination, absolute discipline, and leaders who understand not just warfare, but human psychology. And Leloy has exactly those leaders. Standing beside him is Nguyen Tre, a scholar and strategist whose weapon is not the sword but the written word. Nguyen Tre understands that wars are won in the mind before they are won on the battlefield. He crafts propaganda that sows doubt among enemy ranks. He writes letters so persuasive that Ming officers begin to question their orders. He spreads rumors that turn confidence into fear. And he designs the psychological framework of the trap they are about to spring. Then there are the warriors. Tran Nguyen Han, a general who has fought in more battles than he can count, who knows how to hold a line when everything is collapsing, who can inspire exhausted soldiers to stand when every instinct screams to run. Lu Nanshu, a master of ambush and reconnaissance, a tracker who can read the land like a book and predict enemy movements before they happen. Din Lu and Lu Tru, younger commanders burning with the fire of a generation that has never known peace but refuses to accept defeat. Together, they are about to orchestrate one of the most brilliant military victories in history. As Liu Sheng's massive army crosses into Vietnamese territory, they expect resistance. They expect fortified positions, ambushes, desperate charges by outnumbered defenders trying to slow their advance. But they find none of that. Instead, they find silence. The first villages they reach are abandoned. Cooking fires cold, doors swinging open in the wind, grain scattered on the ground as if people fled in panic, carts overturned, livestock wandering loose. It looks exactly like what you would expect when a population hears that 100,000 soldiers are coming. It looks like fear. The Ming officers smile. This is going to be easier than they thought. The Vietnamese are running. The rebellion is collapsing. All they have to do is march forward, relieve Shenyang, and mop up whatever scattered resistance remains. They send scouts ahead, but the scouts find nothing. Just more empty villages. More signs of hasty retreat. More evidence that the enemy has given up without a fight. The army moves deeper into the mountains, following roads that seem clear and safe. Supply lines stretch behind them, winding back through valleys and passes. Communication between the front and rear becomes slower, more difficult. But no one is worried. Why would they be? There is no enemy in sight. But there is. The Vietnamese are everywhere, hidden in the dense jungle that presses against the roads, positioned on ridge lines where they can watch every movement, moving silently through terrain they have known since childhood, terrain the Ming soldiers find alien and confusing. They are not running. They are guiding. Every abandoned village, every clear road, every seemingly safe valley is a breadcrumb leading the enemy exactly where Le Loi wants them. And with every mile the Ming army advances, the trap grows tighter. Supply wagons begin to disappear. Just a few at first. Stragglers who fall behind and are never seen again. Ming commanders assume it is desertion or bandits. They do not realize that Vietnamese scouts are systematically cutting their logistics, isolating units, gathering intelligence on troop strength and morale. Then scouts start vanishing. Patrols sent out in the morning do not return by nightfall. The jungle, which seemed peaceful at a distance, begins to feel oppressive, watchful. The soldiers start to notice things. The way the birds go silent when they approach. The way the paths narrow without warning. The way the mountains seem to lean in, closing off the sky. And then they reach Chi Lang Valley. It is October 10th, 1427. General Liu Sheng is leading a column of over 30,000 soldiers through what appears to be a straightforward passage between two mountain ridges. The valley is narrow but not alarmingly so. A shallow stream runs through the center. Dense bamboo forest and rocky outcrops line both sides. It is the kind of terrain that makes cavalry less effective, but the Ming have dealt with worse. They are confident, disciplined, ready for anything. Except what is about to happen. The vanguard enters the valley. Drums beat a steady rhythm. Flags flutter in the breeze. Officers shout orders, keeping formations tight. The stream glitters in the pale afternoon light. Everything seems calm. And then the world explodes. Arrows fall like rain, not from one direction, but from all sides. From the trees, from the rocks, from positions so well concealed that the Ming soldiers cannot even see where the shots are coming from. Men scream, fall, clutch at shafts buried in their chests and throats. The front ranks try to raise shields, but the arrows are coming too fast from too many angles. Then comes the fire. Clay pots filled with oil and pitch arc through the air, shattering among the packed ranks, igniting instantly. Soldiers stumble backward, clothes and hair aflame, crashing into the men behind them. The narrow path becomes a bottleneck. Heavy cavalry, the pride of the Ming military, cannot maneuver. Horses scream and rear, throwing riders into the mud. Infantry trying to push forward from the rear crush into the chaos at the front. No one can move. No one can organize. And the Vietnamese keep firing. This is not a battle. This is a slaughter. The terrain itself has become a weapon. The narrow valley that seemed like a minor inconvenience is now a killing box where thousands of soldiers are trapped with no room to fight back. Lu Xing realizes too late what has happened. They have walked into a trap. A perfect, meticulously planned trap. He shouts orders, trying to rally his elite guard, trying to break through the ambush and find open ground. His officers attempt to form defensive squares, but there is no space. Men are slipping in mud turned red with blood. Bodies pile up so quickly that soldiers stumble over their own dead. Then the Vietnamese attack from the ground. They emerge from the jungle like ghosts, spears and swords flashing, hitting the disorganized Ming forces with precise, brutal strikes. These are not desperate charges. These are calculated attacks hitting weak points, exploiting confusion, and then melting back into the forest before reinforcements can arrive. The Ming soldiers, trained for open battle and siege warfare, have no answer for this. They are fighting shadows, fighting the terrain itself. Lu Xing sees a gap opening ahead, a section of the valley that seems less defended. He gathers his remaining elite guard, the best warriors in his army, and charges. It is a desperate move born of courage and desperation. If he can break through, if he can reach open ground, maybe he can regroup and turn this disaster around. His horse pounds forward, guards surrounding him, swords drawn. They push through the Vietnamese line and enter a small clearing. For a moment, it seems like it might work. And then they realize the gap was intentional. Lu Loi himself is waiting on the ridge above. The moment Lu Xing enters the clearing, Vietnamese soldiers attack from all sides. Not an ambush, an execution. Lu Xing fights with everything he has, his sword rising and falling, cutting down attackers, refusing to surrender. But there are too many. His horse is struck, collapses beneath him. He falls hard, tries to stand, armor weighing him down. A blade finds the gap between his helmet and breastplate. Then another. The general of 100,000 soldiers, the man sent to crush the Vietnamese rebellion, falls in the mud of Chi Lang Valley. His head is taken. His army, seeing their commander fall, breaks completely. What follows is not retreat. It is collapse. Soldiers throw down their weapons and run, only to be cut down by Vietnamese forces waiting on every path out of the valley. Some try to surrender, begging for mercy in languages the attackers do not speak. Others simply sit down in the mud, too exhausted and traumatized to move. By nightfall, the valley is silent except for the moans of the wounded. Thousands of Ming soldiers are dead. Thousands more are captured. The rest have scattered into the jungle where they will die slowly of hunger and exposure or be hunted down by Vietnamese patrols. It is one of the most complete military victories in history. And the war is not over. Far to the west, General Mu Sheng is marching with his own army, tens of thousands strong, unaware that Lu Xing is already dead. His mission is to link up with Lu Sheng's forces, relieve the siege at Shangyang, and crush the rebellion from two directions. But by the time he crosses into Vietnamese territory, the trap is already closing on him too. Scouts bring him disturbing news. Villages are empty. There is no sign of Lu Sheng's army. The roads are eerily quiet. Mu Sheng is an experienced commander. He knows something is wrong. But he is also deep in enemy territory with supply lines stretched thin. Turning back now would be seen as cowardice. So he pushes forward, hoping to link up with Lu Xing and find safety in numbers. He never finds Lu Xing. What he finds instead is the Vietnamese. Not in open battle, but in 100 small ambushes. Snipers in trees picking off officers. sharpened bamboo stakes hidden in mud that cripple horses and men, night raids that leave supply wagons burning and sentries dead. His army is being bled slowly, deliberately, without ever seeing the enemy in force. Morale begins to crack. Soldiers whisper that the jungle itself is alive, that ghosts are hunting them. And then Nguyen Tre strikes. Letters begin appearing in the Ming camp. Beautiful calligraphy on fine paper, slipped into tents under cover of darkness. They speak of Lu Sheng's death. They speak of mercy for those who surrender. They speak of the futility of fighting for an emperor who sees them as expendable. Some Ming officers read these letters and feel doubt creep into their minds. A few desert. Others refuse orders, afraid to lead their men into another trap. The army that was supposed to be a hammer becomes a collection of frightened, disorganized units, stumbling through hostile territory. And then Mu Sheng receives the worst news possible. Shenyang has fallen. The fortress he was supposed to relieve has been taken by the Vietnamese through a combination of tunnels, sabotage, and a night assault that ended with Ming defenders slaughtered or captured. There is no mission anymore, no objective, no reason to keep marching except pride. And pride is not worth dying for. When the message comes offering surrender, offering life in exchange for weapons, Mu Sheng accepts. Tens of thousands of Ming soldiers lay down their arms, not because they are cowards, but because they have been outmaneuvered, outthought, and defeated by an enemy they never truly understood. The news reaches the Ming court like a thunderbolt. 2 armies, over 100,000 soldiers, sent to crush a rebellion, and both destroyed. Lu Sheng dead. Mu Sheng surrendered. The costs in lives, gold, and prestige are catastrophic. The emperor, furious and humiliated, is forced to make a choice. He can send more armies, pour more resources into a war that is bleeding his empire dry, or he can accept reality. The Vietnamese have won, not through luck, not through superior numbers, but through intelligence, strategy, and an unbreakable will to remain free. In 1428, the Ming dynasty formally recognizes Vietnamese independence. They call it a strategic withdrawal, a reorganization of priorities. But everyone knows the truth. They were beaten, defeated by a nation that refused to accept defeat. Lu Loi becomes emperor, founding a dynasty that will rule for centuries. Nguyen Tre writes the Great Proclamation, a declaration of independence that speaks not just of military victory, but of the right of nations to determine their own fate. It is a document that will inspire generations, a testament to the power of ideas over armies. But the cost has been staggering. 20 years of war have left Vietnam scarred, villages destroyed, fields burned, families shattered. An entire generation has grown up knowing nothing but conflict. The victory at Chi Lang is celebrated, but it is celebrated quietly, with the understanding that freedom came at a price paid in blood and suffering. The heroes are honored. Stone tablets are erected. Songs are sung. But beneath the celebration is grief for those who did not live to see the peace they fought for. Chi Lang itself becomes a place of memory. The valley where 30,000 soldiers died is left largely untouched. Local people avoid it, saying the ghosts of the fallen still walk there. In later years, temples are built, offerings are made, prayers are said for the dead on both sides. Because even in victory, there is sorrow. Even in triumph, there is loss. The Vietnamese remember not just that they won, but what they had to become to win. The things they had to sacrifice. The innocence they could never reclaim. And what does this story mean for us, centuries later, in a world where wars are fought with drones and missiles instead of swords and arrows? It means that the fundamental truths of conflict have not changed. That intelligence matters more than strength. That understanding your enemy is more valuable than outnumbering them. That terrain, timing, and psychology can overcome raw power. That a people fighting for their freedom are the most dangerous enemy any empire can face. Think about what Lu Loi and Nguyen Tre achieved. They did not defeat the Ming dynasty by matching them soldier for soldier. They defeated them by making the Ming defeat themselves, by luring them into terrain where their advantages became liabilities, by stretching their supply lines until they snapped, by attacking their morale and cohesion with words as much as weapons. by turning patience into a weapon and silence into a trap. This is the art of war at its highest level. Not destroying the enemy through brute force, but making it impossible for them to use their force effectively. And it required something that cannot be trained or manufactured. It required a people who believed so deeply in their cause that they were willing to endure unimaginable hardship, who were willing to abandon their homes, burn their crops, live in the jungle, and fight a war they might not survive, all for the chance that their children might live free. That kind of determination cannot be defeated by numbers or technology. It can only be defeated by destroying every last person who feels it. And the Ming learned, too late, that some peoples cannot be destroyed, only respected. So when you think about Qilang, do not think of it as ancient history with no relevance to the modern world. Think of it as a demonstration of what humans are capable of when everything is on the line. Think of it as proof that tyranny can be resisted, that empires can be defeated, that freedom is not given but taken by those brave enough to fight for it. Think of the soldier at the beginning of this story, standing in an empty village, holding a letter he will never send home. He represents all of them. Every man who marched into that valley believing in his cause, never knowing he was already caught in a trap designed by minds sharper than any sword. The Vietnamese did not just win a battle at Qilang. They won a war for identity, for sovereignty, for the right to exist as themselves. And they did it not through miracles or luck, but through courage, creativity, and a refusal to accept what everyone told them was inevitable. History remembers empires that conquer, but it honors peoples who refuse to be conquered. And on that October day in 1427, in a narrow valley where the jungle pressed close and the mountains watched in silence, the Vietnamese became one of those peoples. Remember them. Remember Qilang. Because in remembering, we honor not just their victory, but the principle that some things are worth any price. That freedom cannot be given. That silence can be louder than steel. And that sometimes the greatest weapon is not the one you hold in your hand, but the one you plant in your enemy's mind.